Our next speaker has joined us from Connecticut on the eastern coast of the United States of America. There you go, there he is. He also exhibits Trinada P because he also lived with me, but for less time. And I am so happy to see him and Banu Didi in the same frame. Haribol Banu, beautiful to see you from Connecticut. Raghava Pandit is Sriman Raghava Pandit Prabhu is a disciple of Govinda Maharaj, as well as a disciple of Srila Gurudeva, Narayana Maharaj. And I'm so happy that he's a close friend. He's a very creative person, very open-minded, has a very universal spirit when it comes to spreading Krishna consciousness. One of the most non-sectarian people I know. He's always looking for the bigger picture, the bigger vision. He's also very talented at deploying his skills on through web design and web strategy and web courses. So I'm very happy that you're coming to share your offering with us, Raghava. So Hare Krishna, please, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Wow, after that introduction, I feel like I wanted to just disappear under the table. But thank you so much for your kindness and for all the Vaishnavas here for giving the opportunity.
You can go under the table as long as you come back, okay?
Vancha kalpatruvasya kripa sindhuvyevasya patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Uma jnanati marandasya jnanandjana salakya Chaksuran militam yena tasmai Sri Gurave namaha. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripata maham bande Sri Guru Dinatari. I want to give my Sastanga heartfelt Dandavat pranams at the lotus feet of my Gurudev Srila Nityalila Pavista 108 Srila Govinda Goswami Maharaj, and my equal Sastanga Dandavat pranams at the lotus feet of my Shiksha Guru Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj, and also unlimited Pushpanjali Sastanga Dandavat pranams at the lotus feet of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj, and all Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas in the line of Sri Rupa Nuga, Sri Rupa Goswami, worshippers and friends and admirers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the past, at present, and those who will become devotees in the future. I'm also giving my Dandavat pranams to them. So this is really wonderful Zoom Kirtan that we are doing today and over these weeks, which I really appreciate and try to make use of when we are sitting here with time differences but it's always wonderful, always fills my heart with admiration and appreciation. Even although we may have busy lives, yesterday we were driving our car while listening to the wonderful speech of Bhagavat Maharaj about the parikram and the ongoings, etc. So it is a wonderful time to be alive and to have such connection through internet. And it's being fully embraced also out of necessity, because in any normal situation, all of us, most of us, would actually be right now in Vrindavan, covered in dust and smoke in our nose from the kitchen that are banging the pots, making prasadam for all the thousands of pilgrims, etc. But now here we are in the comforts of our home, but still feeling somewhat empty and bereft. And although we have everything here, it's very convenient, but still we are missing this special ras, this special flavor, this specialty of being, with our devotee family and our Gurudev, who we miss every day and meditate on for inspiration and to keep us on the path of bhakti. And so we're being asked to share some of the memories in light of Srila Gurudev's beautiful centennial celebrations, and also of the celebrations of Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada, our, I don't know if we could call him the father of the Sankirtan movement, because that is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he's definitely a key figure in the history books and in the line. That's without a doubt. I took down a few points just so that I can collect my thoughts a little bit while I was listening to Ban Maharaj and Balabhadra Prabhu and Raghunath Prabhu. So many wonderful things are coming up. It's amazing how much knowledge and mercy and nectar is stored in the heart of the devotees, and any opportunity that arrives, the devotees will open up and gladly share those beautiful, fragrant flowers and gems and wisdoms that have been collected and have been sort of like, also, they weren't just collected and stored, but it seems like some curing has gone on, like it's become more than what it initially might have been. So my first encounter with Srila Narayana Goswami Maharaj, Srila Gurudeva, was in 1990 or 1991, when I was doing the, I had just joined the temple in Amsterdam. I'm from Holland. And Sriman Brajanath Prabhu and his wife, they were the sort of temple president or co-president, or it wasn't really clear, but it was clear that they were in some managing role. And they would go to Vrindavan and especially Brinda Didi, whose name was Tulasi Vrindavan Dasi. She was doing the parikram with Lokanath Maharaj, and I was joining as a new bhakta. I was totally, completely clueless. All I knew was like, gotta chant Hare Krishna and stay out of trouble, and life will be perfect, right? I was doing some studies at the VIHE, the Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education, etc. But the highlights were the parikrams, like going out, seeing the sadhus and the babas, and so every year it was custom to stop by the Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Math, because the Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Math is very significant for us, because it is the place where not only Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur established the Math. The Math was managed, maintained, and made glorious by Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj and so many other Vaishnavas and his disciples, but it was also the place where our Srila Prabhupada had received sannyas. So it was a must for us to go and pay pranams to the dust, and also the deity, the Mahaprabhu deity there. There's one set of deities, or more sets, but it's Gauranga and Radha Vinod Bihari. Now this Gauranga deity was originally owned and worshipped and established by Srila Prabhupada in Jhansi, which is where he first established the League of Devotees. Before anything ISKCON, before even taking sannyas, Prabhupada had this mission that he set up, and he had a deity, Mahaprabhu deity, and that deity, since the mission did not continue, or was discontinued, and the deity needed a place, and the perfect place for the deity up till now was in the Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Math. So there's a very strong link there already. So this is 1990 or 91, I forget. But so you can already see, wow, there's some special connection there. I didn't know much of the politics. Maybe the politics weren't even happening yet. I also do remember that while I was staying in the Gurukul in Vrindavan, that Sri Narayana Maharaj would visit every year for Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day, which happens right in the month of Kartik, towards the end. I think it's 10 days before the end of Kartik, and Sri Narayana Maharaj would come with his entourage, with some of his brahmacharis, and he would be received with all the decorum and etiquette of exchanging flower garlands and touching the feet and offering a proper seat and microphone to speak something about the glories of Srila Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, who Gurudeva Srila Narayana Maharaj would consider his Siksha Guru. So it was always very beautiful and wonderful. And I always thought, like, how beautiful that these different families, like, I'm not aware of, I'm just a bhakta. I don't know anything about ISKCON, Gaudiya Math, and all the so-called fighting, all that later, I learned later. But I was happy. I was blissful. And I was kind of like staying close with Ayendra Prabhu, who would speak a lot to me. The 24-hour kirtan organizer, department head. and he would speak to me a lot about, especially Guru Tattva. So I felt like what he was saying felt very right, as opposed to some of my well-meaning sort of, fellow Bhakta program participants, young devotees, maybe some older devotees that were talking to me in a way, oftentimes trying to sell their guru or sell the program they were on, or trying to enlist me or recruit me. And I always felt a little uneasy, but I had no problems with that. I always knew that if I follow my heart and pray, that Guru will reveal. So long story short, I ended up being initiated by my Gurudev, Srila Gurudeva Gosvami Maharaj, and whom I consider to be my end all be all, everything, in the savior of my life, like honestly. And living there and serving him, at some point I would actually take up the service of transcribing his lectures and printing those into books or booklets. And I was highly inspired by the books that I saw that were being published and coming out of Sri Keshavji Gaudiya, meaning Sri Narayana Maharaj. So his books were largely based on, and also the books of Srila Sridhar Maharaj really inspired me. And I learned that those books weren't written, but they were transcribed from lectures that were recorded and then written out and then edited for clarity and brevity and accuracy. And then they were printed and distributed. I thought, what a wonderful way. We should do that also with our Guru Maharaj. So I started doing this and mirroring or, taking great inspiration from the books that I was seeing from Sri Narayana Maharaj. So at some point, those books also need to be distributed, which always gave me a wonderful excuse to go to Vrindavan. So in '92, we printed the first book, and I ended up going to Vrindavan. And I ran into Brajanath Prabhu, who was initially my sort of temple commander. But by now, he had been initiated and been associated very closely with Sri Narayana Maharaj. And he invited me to come over to Sevakunj, to Sri Rup Sanatan Gaudiya Math, to come and see Maharaj, and just to say hello, basically. And I was like, that's a great idea. And so I went there with a gift, which is my Guru Maharaj's book, and I presented, and Maharaj, I have a present for you. I wanted to present it to you. And he was very appreciative, and he asked Brajanath Prabhu to get some of his books, which I think was Beyond Vaikuntha or Going Beyond Vaikuntha and the Nectar of Govinda Leela, right? So I touched them to my head. I already had those books and read those books, but I kept them as a present to give to my Gurudev. So long story short, as I went back to Bhubaneswar, I would arrive late sometimes, like 9-10 p.m. by train. Oh, hellish train ride from Vrindavan is like easily 40 hours, like completely dusty and fried in the brain and everything else. But upon seeing, the lotus feet of my Gurudev, like I feel fresh like anything. And so Guru Maharaj would, he would gesture at me like, come. So I would give my pranams and he would go like this, he wouldn't say much. He would just nod his head, like, as in, so how did it go? Anything, So I would give a report. I said, well, Gurudev, we met this devotee, very nice devotee. We did a book table. I met one nice boy. His name is, I forget, George. He ended up being Acharya Ratna Prabhu, and from England. And then I met some other devotees, maybe some Prabhupada's disciples. Some were very appreciative, some were less appreciative, but there was always an interesting exchange and some nice things to report. Some of the bookshops that wanted to have books that I left there. By hook or by crook, we were trying to get those books out. I was not very aggressive because I was also aware that some of my well-meaning God brothers were creating a little bit of problem because they were pushing so hard what they had learned from our Gurudev, like regards to Guru Tattva, Jiva Tattva, and so many Tattvas. But I didn't feel it was right for me to have these kind of battles with devotees. I just wanted to be there, make the books available. It was not about me. But not that I was any better or I had a better approach, but that was just my personality at that time. And so, a few books, nothing really major, but one major thing is that I wanted to mention that I had handed his books in the hands of Sri Narayana Maharaj. you know, because at that time, living in Bhubaneswar, we didn't really go anywhere, and not a lot of devotees would visit us, only occasionally, mostly on their way to Puri. They would stop in Bhubaneswar, give some Dandavat pranams, maybe sitting in our Guru Maharaj's class for, you know, 15 minutes, and then get up and go. And the class would usually last maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. But there was always this talk about Sri Narayana Maharaj, the GBC. The, you know, messages were coming out that there was some friction, there was some issues, and our Guru Maharaj was often asked about it, and he would always like make sure that we do not and get involved in this committing of aparad, collective aparad, or thinking even poorly or badly or critically of Maharaj, who's a great Vaishnava, etc. So when I mentioned to my Guru Maharaj at, you know, this late hour upon my return and giving a report that I had handed the books, he became very happy, and I handed him the books that Sri Narayana had given me to give to my Gurudeva. And he says, "Oh, very good, thank you very much." So he got up and went straight into his hut. I don't know if you've seen pictures, but he used to stay in a hut, you know, like that he built pretty much with his own hands, to stay on the land that was donated, that was really rough. And that hut, I think most of it has been demolished over time, which is very, 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 very sad. But yeah, Prabhupada stayed there also for 17 days. He had made a special arrangement for Srila Prabhupada, although he had made arrangements in the guest house in Bhubaneswar, in the city, you know, proper guest house for Prabhupada to stay. But Prabhupada said, no, I won't stay there. Why would I stay there? I want to stay here in the place that my own child has made with his own hand. And so Prabhupada stayed there for 17 days. But so our Guru Maharaj went into that hut and for the night, and I went up and did my thing, had a shower and laid down and got up the next morning for the program, and going through the normal program of, you know, morning kirtan and Tulsi Puja kirtan and Japa and Guru Puja. And then our Guru Maharaj would give and speak class. And usually the class was in two parts. The beginning was all in Uriya, and the latter part was in English. Now, if you thought, oh, I'm English, so I'll just get up for the Uriya part and then do some things and then come back for the English part, that was not the way to do it. Like, he would pick on you, he would tell you how much of a nonsense you were, because Shabda Brahma has nothing to do with language. So he would force us to sit through the Uriya. So actually, if you were a bit smart, you would actually learn a lot of Uriya. So the English part would start, and our Guru Maharaj was speaking. I don't know exactly what the verse was or what the topic was, but at some point, he started speaking and narrating a lila. And that lila was, I had read this book, The Nectar of Govinda Lila by Sri Narayana Maharaj. I had read it before I even went to Vrindavan. And so when I heard my Guru Maharaj speak this particular lila that I knew was from this book, I was like, oh, he's read this book. I gave him the book and he read it, like even at 10 p.m. when I left to go up and he went in. He must have taken this time out to read this book. How wonderful. So I was really like, I could see how much appreciation and endorsement, and, you know, if there was any controversy or any, like, there was no doubt in my mind how much love and appreciation and respect and admiration really there was, like, mutually. But I don't think Sri Narayana Maharaj knew much about my Guru Maharaj until, you know, later years. But to me, that was just such a wonderful moment, you know, like, so we're talking about 90, I think this is 94, you know, so quite a lot of the GBC problems with Gurudeva had started, you know, the cracks were developing, and there were, you know, statements made, and unfortunate, it was an unfortunate situation. And so, but, you know, we are there in Bhubaneswar. I had all of Maharaj's books, Narayana Maharaj's books. I was doing mostly book editing, book publishing and stuff. And we were staying in a house and with some other devotees like Madhavananda Prabhu and Rasikananda Prabhu and Jagadish Prabhu. And I was always listening to Sri Narayana Maharaj's kirtan. I was always listening to his kirtans while I was doing my work. To me, that was just beautiful kirtan, which is wonderful. But you can see how Gurudev has influenced the style of kirtan so much throughout ISKCON. You know, like people like Agnidev, who's like a kirtan king, you know, who has taken many or borrowed or adopted many of the melodies that Gurudev had sort of initiated and instated, you know, in the proper way of doing, you know, Gaur Kirtan and Braj Ras. and all that. So you can see so many little pieces of that have been influenced by Gurudev's presence, by his bhajan, by his practicing of devotional service, by his preaching, etc. It's unbelievable. Now fast forward a little bit to 1996, or actually prior to 96. So our Guru Maharaj would often say somehow that there is a professor and he is doing all this research at the Utkal University, which is the University of Orissa. Utkal is another name for Orissa. And he's a Gaudiya Vaishnava, and he has come up with this one scripture, and by a poet named Kanu Priya Goswami, and in that he says that so many years, so I forget the number now, the other day we were trying to get it right, I forget the number, it's 500 or 510 years after the appearance or disappearance perhaps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we are talking 1996, that's the year that was being indicated by the calculation. In 1996, there will be a Prem Yuga. A Prem Yuga will commence, So we were always wondering, what does that mean? Prem Yuga will commence, because we are in Kali Yuga, everything is rotten, everyone's quarreling, everyone's fighting, the world is polluted, and that was in 96, so, let alone right now. So we're always wondering what's going on with this Kanu Priya Goswami, and what is this, like this prediction, right? So what does it mean? Like, what's going to happen? We always think about our Guru Maharaj, it's like something's going to happen. Anyway, we all know what happened, and for those who don't, I'll try to keep it short. Our Guru Maharaj went out for a preaching in South Africa. He came back around February. He observed the Nityananda festival in Bhubaneswar, and then he would go straight to the GBC meetings in Mayapur, and had all these meetings that were not his favorite activity, but it was part of his service, so he would oblige. But in the evening times, he would always receive devotees in his room and speak very nice and sweet Harikatha. Now he had ordered me to stay behind. I was not in India. I was in Singapore. I was working on a book called The Embankment of Separation, which is based on his classes, very intimate Harikatha about the significance of why Mahaprabhu stayed in Jagannath Puri. And so I was working on that book, and our Guru Maharaj was there in Mayapur in his room speaking very beautiful Harikatha. Actually, he was speaking the same topic that I was printing in this one book that he was sort of like asked to speak on by some very dear devotees that we all know, senior devotees. And so he actually ended up speaking and could not continue speaking because, he got choked up, or, there are many, many different ways of interpreting, but he basically entered into Mahasamadhi, and he left his body like right there in front of everyone. His heartbeat stopped, his body became, so he entered into Samadhi, and he was put into Samadhi, and so we were shocked. We were totally shocked. This is 96 February. It's on the appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We were all in shock, and I got the news actually from Tapasvi Maharaj, who had just come back from India and had arrived in Singapore, where we were staying, or actually it was in Malaysia, where we were all staying. And he says, "Oh, Guru Maharaj has left his body last night." And I was like, yeah, I know. I had this kind of dream. I don't know. It was very weird that I had this dream. Like it almost didn't come even as a shock. But we all went to India, and long story short, we ended up visiting Srila Narayana Maharaj at the Devananda Gaudiya Mutt, and as well as Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, to give our pranams and to ask for mercy and guidance in this very difficult time for us. Like, there was no sign that our Guru Maharaj would ever leave, but he did leave, and we were orphans all of a sudden. We didn't know what to do, where to go, who to pray to. The only thing I could liken this to is like when the gopis, when Akrura took Krishna away from Vrindavan, and the gopis were ready to give up their lives, but if they would to give up their lives, that would not please Krishna, so that's why they did not give up their lives. But otherwise they would have given up their lives 1,000 times. I can tell you honestly, that's kind of similar how we all felt. And then we came to Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, who gave us so much words of solace, as well as Srila Narayana Maharaj, who was in Devananda Gaudiya Math, who was just there to help. He says, I want to help you and all this, like, you know. So there was already a connection, and the connection was getting a little bit deeper. I have to track back a little bit. We were all staying in Singapore, in Malaysia, frequently at the house of Gokul Das and myself. We had a few apartments that we were renting, and there was also Urukram Prabhu, who's now Padmanabha Maharaj, and there was also Pran Kishore Prabhu, who was also staying there collecting money for their projects and travels to India and their sevas, and we didn't know them, but we had run into each other, and they were followers of, they were Prabhupada disciples. They were Siksha disciples of Srila Bhakti Rakshakshira Maharaj, and they were Siksha disciples of Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj. So we were like exchanging a lot of nectar and comparing a lot of notes, like, oh, our Guru said this, oh, our Guru said the same thing, and like, but different angles. And so there was a lot of churning going on until we heard the news that our Guru had departed. So there was already, so in our hearts were being prepared, I feel, so, and then we got the news that Guru Maharaj, that Gurudev Sri Narayana Maharaj was going to embark upon his first world tour in 96. So we're thinking about, 96, Prem Yuga. This Kanupriya Goswami had predicted this Prem Yuga will commence. Like, wow, okay. So the things are happening here. So, and the rest is history, but Gokul Das and myself decided, like, wow, we should really join this world tour, because this is going to be like amazing, So we booked our tickets, and we flew to LA, and we joined up with Gurudev. I don't know if you showed it, Anand Prabhu was there, or I think so. Yeah, that first world tour. So we were all there in Badger and other places, so many other places where Gurudev, I've not come to take anything here. I'm here only to give Pushpanjali and take the dust where Swami Prabhupada has gone, and give my and try to help the devotees that are drying up and that have been praying, for help, for inspiration, for guidance and affection. And Gurudev just did just that, and we saw with our own eyes how he was like bringing back to life these dried up little bhakti plants that were still full of bhakti, but it needed something, a special touch. The circumstances had made it impossible, but for them to flourish, given the situation in our society. And so Gurudev really, like, he brought them back to life. It was wonderful to see, and just the effect that he had everywhere he went. It was like, he was wanting to hear from them about their relationship with Srila Prabhupada and how it had made such an impact. And Gurudev was just like, he was in awe to see how many devotees had given up their youth, to go and sell books. Bhagavad Prabhu was just speaking about the importance of, to read, study, and hear, and distribute, preserve, these granthas that are not material books, And so these devotees had given up their youth, when others are going to university, are finding a spouse, are getting a home and with a picket fence and, a cat and a dog and all that, sort of like the normal kind of like American way or Western way. But no, they gave all that up to serve Prabhupada. And there were no facilities, everything was just like whatever you could grab, that's, that's your service, and that's how you're going to do it. There was no facilities like we have all these facilities in the world right now. The other day, you showed Anand Prabhu and myself, we're talking about how lucky we actually are, because, we're talking a little bit about the various temples and preaching centers, and would you prefer to go to this one, or would you prefer to go to that one? And it's like, wow, what a world that we live in. Like, just imagine 50 years ago. I mean, we don't have any choice. Like, would you prefer to go to this preaching center? Like, there were no preaching centers. You were the preaching center, and you had to, and that's what devotees did. They touched the lives of so many others, and they followed them back to the temple from Harinam Sankirtan that was being done. And so Gurudev, he was just listening. He was just filling his own heart with so much appreciation, giving so much honor to how these devotees were all touched by Srila Prabhupada. And and he was talking about the relationship that he had with Srila Prabhupada before Prabhupada even came to the West, and how they would roll chapatis together and discuss Siddhanta, and how Srila Prabhupada would, you know, preach in English and have Gurudev and his brahmacharis sit in class and listen to the Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada give lecture in English. He was practicing, and they were also learning, and it was all part of this big world vision in his heart. It was already there. He wanted to serve his Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. There was nothing else in the world worth living for, only to fulfill that mission. And Gurudev, you know, going around America on that first world tour in '96, he was just wanting to hear all these various pastimes and the relationships and the anecdotes and the humorous moments and the defining moments, and to serve that and to water that and to bring that back to life and to make it bigger and to bring back that same spirit. And we see it, we've seen it, the wave, the Prem Yuga that Srila Narayana Srila Gurudev had caused is tremendous. That first, so we're talking June, July of '96, and come October. So of course, wherever Gurudev was, he's like, please, I invite you, come to Vrindavan for Kartik. So, you know, all these devotees were showing up in October in the case of Gaudiya Math, which is not built for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pilgrims. So it was like the first parikram. Well, it was not the first parikram, because I know there had been parikrams with Western devotees that were way smaller and more intimate. But I felt like this is Gurudev's first world tour, and he came back and he had collected all these beautiful flowers that he wanted to offer in the hands of Srimati Radhika, who would offer them to Krishna, and it was just a beautiful sight to see. And like I've seen so many tears, you know, from devotees that were just so touched and feeling like they were saved once and now they were saved again. And it's just, I don't know how to say it. It is the most wonderful thing. I want to add one more story. I don't know how timing is going, but I just
about 3 minutes.
Okay, so so at some point I was living in Singapore with the devotees. There was Gokul, there was Pran Kishore and his wife, and there was, I think, Ananta Tapasri Maharaj also staying there in one apartment. It was like a condominium block with like, it almost looked like a resort with palm trees and swimming pool, and it was very nice. And so I figured, hey, Brajinath Prabhu, you know, when you come to Singapore next, because Gurudev would stop in Singapore and go about to Bali or to Australia, and he would spend a week or so in Singapore to preach to the devotees there. Those from Malaysia would come down, and I had a nice apartment that I thought, like, maybe Gurudev could stay here. And then Brajinath Prabhu, who's my old friend, he made it happen, and so Gurudev came to stay with us in our house, you know, and that was like, wow, how wonderful, how amazing. But you know, Gurudev, he never comes alone. So there we were, like we're tending to Gurudev, making sure the kitchen was all right, making sure the bathroom was all right, making sure the program could take place, and this. And then all of a sudden, I got a phone call from my landlord, and she's like, "What's going on?" You know, in Chinese accent, but I don't want to go mimic the Chinese accent, but it was very cute. And I was like, I don't know. She's like, well, the whole swimming pool has been taken over by orange, you know, cloth. And I looked out the window and I was like, oh my God, because there was a swimming pool. I think Budhara Prabhu was there. There was a swimming pool, and all the devotees, just like on Parikram, were just washing their dhotis and hanging their kopin and like, you know, kamshas and like making bombs and like, you know, like, anything, because it was a play yard. There was kids, there was barbecue, there was tennis. It was like a little resort. And so I was like, oh, I know like easily 50 devotees taking over the place. And I was talking to my landlord. I said, well, we're having a small gathering. And we hadn't even started the kirtan yet. So, you know, I don't know how we pulled it off, but it all worked out, of course, in the end, as it always does. But it just gave such a beautiful memory. And not only does it give a beautiful memory. So of course, you know, we have a little slight bhakti self-interest, you know, because when we offer anything to Gurudev, he may use it once and then leave it with us, and then we can worship those items. So that is exactly what we are seeing here. These have been with me for on all my world travels and other places. These are the shoes that Gurudev wore, or actually like more like house slippers. So you can all maybe touch your screen and touch your to your head and get some blessings here. I'll I'll go first. But he wore those in our house. They're like common house slippers. We got them at IKEA, and we we dyed them orange. But they've been with me. They've been with me for all these years, and I know Gurudev always said, like, I was never so much interested in collecting the items of my Guru Maharaj, but I was interested in collecting the moods in my heart. But I'm still very, very happy with this item, and it's on my altar. And sometimes people that are not devotees will inquire, like, why do you keep shoes there? Whose shoes are those? So, but which is always a beautiful lead into a beautiful pastime, a beautiful conversation. So let's talk. So, alrighty. So, well, I want to thank you all for organizing this wonderful satsang, this Zoom kirtan, giving this, rotten, dried up soul somehow some opportunity to speak something. It's, I don't have the qualities that I see in so many of you, which I aspire for, but I do have great love for the devotees, and I'm very grateful to have had Guru Maharaj in my life, even although I have not taken advantage. That is my lamentation. But with the mercy of the Vaishnavas, I am always hopeful. I'm never hopeless. Always hopeful that someday a change will come in my heart, that I will dedicate myself fully to the lotus feet of our Guru Varga. So thank you very much, devotees. Vanchakalpa trubhyasya kripa sindhubhyavasta patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sri Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai, Nitai Gautamanandi. Hari Hari. Thank you, Sri.
Reverend brother, that was just relishable. Because there was, I was shifting from laughter to tears and back again several times, which reminded me of Srila Gurudev. But I think Srila Govinda Maharaj was the same, because Gurudev said, a day is not complete for him unless he's laughed and cried each day. So I think your offering really encapsulated that really beautifully. And also, I was taken to a really lofty, beautiful, above the clouds vision. Kind of two things that I really got out of what you were saying was how everything is reconciled at the Guru level. They are so in harmony. Going back to Raghunath Das's offering about how they are all mandris coming down as acharyas. These great personalities reconcile everything. If we can see things through their eyes, then reconciliation of all the so-called differences are nothing. And in fact, I read the other day that was it Srila? I think it was two of the acharyas, Rakshak Srila Maharaj and I think Srila Prabhupada. I may have got one of them wrong, but they used to stage kind of be on the Vyasa-san, arguing their differences to demonstrate how you can have love and affection irrespective of differences.
Yeah.
And I think, I introduced you as somebody who really had that vision of non-sectarianism, and for the Prema Yuga to really accelerate and intensify as it's prognosticated it will. This is the vision that we really need. So thank you so much for your beautiful offering.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.